Well, this is actually a really good segue because we're picking up Matthew 24. Where are we at, Jake?
36.
36. And this is where a lot of people start dividing, right?
Yes.
And we kind of stopped there because we thought, well, this is kind of everyone's in agreement. This is 80, 70.
It's the easy part.
This is the easy part.
Through verse 34 and 35, depending on if you're going to go further in the text. It's pretty easy. You will find many commentators, old commentators, newer commentators who will say Matthew 24, verse 34, refers to that particular generation.
Okay.
That's not controversial. Although a lot of dispensationalists, in fact, obviously would disagree with us on that.
So before we pick up, because there is an assumed. How do I say it? There's an assumed, not pattern, but there's a structure. There's what's the word I'm looking for here? There's a chronology.
Right.
Right. But you were the first person to point out to me that Luke 21 is dealing with the same scenario, right? It's the same situation.
Right.
And in Luke 21, all these same events that are discussed here are not in this order.
Luke 17.
Excuse me, Luke 17.
Luke 17.
Luke 17.
Exactly. Yes.
Not in this order. So what should that be a clue for us in regards to how we read the Bible if we're looking at those two? What should that be telling us from a study of the Bible?
I got introduced to all of this, and I mentioned this before, through Marcellus Kick's book, just Matthew 24.
Okay.
And in there, he describes these verses 30, 35, and 36 as the transition verse. So this supposedly transitions from AD 70 to the second, what we would call today the second coming.
Okay.
So now you would have a gap here in time of nearly 2,000 years.
And where did he split it at?
I think he splits it after verse, 35 and 36 really go together, because he would say, verse 35, heaven and earth will pass away. It refers to the physical heavens and earth that are going to pass away.
In verse 35.
35.
But isn't 35 connected to 34? Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place.
Yes, and I believe
heaven and earth will pass. It seems like just me not knowing much about grammar. I've got the pass away. Pass away gets brought up again. It seems like it would be connected. It would be a natural way to read it.
If you say heaven and earth will pass away, but my words shall not pass away, you can read heaven and earth two different ways. Heaven and earth here, let's just read it this way.
Okay.
Jesus says in verse 34, truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my word shall not pass away. So if it's metaphorical or if it's literal, Jesus is confirming with an illustration what he says in verse 34, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. So Jesus is saying, look, however you interpret heaven and earth, what I just told you is solid. There's no debate about it. It's going to take place.
Okay.
If it refers to the physical heavens and earth, my word still stands. If it's metaphorical and refers to the old covenant order passing away, either way, it's not going to happen.
Okay.
And so the physical heavens and earth passing away, people say, well, you go to 2 Peter chapter 3, which talks about heavens and earth, they will be consumed in fire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of Bible commentators say, no, that is not referring to the second coming of Christ. It's referring to the old covenant passing away.
Right.
Because there's a Greek word there, stoicheia, which means elements. Not atomic elements, but elements of the old covenant. Let me see if I can find those passages.
But couldn't stoicheia also be the elements, meaning rain, wind, the elements of the world, the sky, the earth, fire?
Well, that's not how it's used in the New Testament.
Okay.
In the New Testament, and that's where you have to go. And I thought I had them written down
Colossians
here. So
2:8.
yeah, Colossians 2:8. Let's look at Colossians 2:8 so we can see it. It may give us some references as to where the other ones are in here. See to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception, according to the tradition of men, according to the elementary principles of the world. So now you might say, well, elementary principles of the world, that's atomic elements, but the whole thing here is philosophy, deception, tradition of men, according to the elementary principles of the world. And if you go to
verse 20,
if you have died with Christ to the elementary principles of the world, why is it if the living in the world you do not submit yourself to decrees as do not handle, do not taste, do not touch? So here he's defining these elements. These elements are covenantal, old covenantal
An element
elements.
there is stoichia.
Stoichia,
Okay.
right. And there's one, I think, in
Hebrews 5:12.
yes, that's the one. Hebrews 5:12. This is an interesting passage in and of itself, where you have the writer of Hebrews about to discuss Melchizedek, and he says, verse 11, concerning him we have much to say, and it is hard to explain, since you have become dull of hearing. For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you have need again for someone to teach you the elementary principles of the oracles of God, and you have come to need milk and not solid food. For everyone who partakes only of milk is not accustomed to the word of righteousness, for he is a babe, but solid food is for the mature, who because of practice have their senses trained to discern good and evil. So this is not talking about physical elements.
Got it.
It's talking about the truth, the basic fundamental truths of the gospel that are elementary. And then prior to the New Testament, there were elementary principles that were going to pass away, because when Jesus comes, which is what the book of Hebrews is all about, so you see that here in Hebrews chapter 5, verse 12.
So heaven and earth will pass away to get people caught up. I'll back up to 34. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Everything we've discussed from verse 1 up to 32.
Yeah. Now,
Okay.
what I'm going to say next is controversial within our circles among Reformed people,
Okay.
especially when it comes to the law. And a lot of people will go to Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. Jesus says, do not think I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. And then he says, for truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass away from the law until all is accomplished.
Which sounds like verse 35.
Which sounds like verse 35. Whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments and so teaches others shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Now, if heaven and earth here refers to the physical heavens and earth, then every jot and tittle of the law is still applicable today. But in reality, if you read the book of Hebrews, some of the jots and the tittles aren't applicable today. Right. They've passed away.
Yeah.
So is Jesus doing what here in Matthew chapter 5 and what he's doing in Matthew chapter 24, borrowing language from Isaiah 65, where Isaiah 65 talks about new heavens and the new earth, and it's obvious that that's not talking about a physical new heavens and new earth, because people are dying in that new heavens and new earth. So
what's the cheat code for someone when they read heaven and earth? What should they be thinking of?
Well, sometimes heaven and earth certainly means the physical heavens and earth. I think what you have to look at are issues related to timing. What factors are in the text that would give you an indication of what Jesus is talking about? And there's a logical issue as well. Well, obviously the jots and tittles, some of these have passed away.
Right.
So that can't mean the end of history, or of course we'd be still doing animal sacrifices and circumcision and all those sorts of things. And so in some sense, the heavens and earth have passed away. And that was the position of John Brown in his 3-volume commentary on Discourses and Sayings of our Lord Jesus Christ. That's what's being described here. And there are others.
But in this verse, in verse 35, can we say heaven and earth is just a cheat code for Israel, for Jerusalem, for the law, for the old covenant? What
I would say that it's a cheat code for that the temporary old covenant system that was designed to pass away.
Okay.
And because when Jesus came, there is a new heavens and a new earth, a new covenant that comes out of that. You find in was it 1 Corinthians 5:17? We're new creatures in Christ. This
Right.
newness idea.
Right.
We're not physically newer.
Okay.
I mean, I've lost
Right.
a lot of my hair.
Yes.
There's the newness of creation is a redemptive newness, and I think that's what we're seeing here. Is this new covenant has come, and it's as if the whole physical cosmos had passed away,
Got it.
but the covenant has come in, and it's represented of that, and it's now gone.
Because otherwise you would have to read it as heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. The whole world would have to burn up, whether it was obliterated, and then we just went to heaven, meaning that that's all gone, but obviously the words of Jesus as our Lord and Savior and King still continue even in heaven.
Yeah.
Right? No, I'm saying that.
Yeah.
I mean that's what somebody would have to say of it, right?
So
or
yeah. So now, and I have in my book Last Days Madness, I kind of give sources of very, very fine commentators who take that position, and then you get I think the next verse is really the clincher here. But of that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father alone. And the question is, what is this referring to? So if you look at heaven and earth will pass away as the passing away of the physical heavens and earth, then they would read this, but of the day and hour when the physical heavens and earth pass away, which no one knows, not even the angels of heaven nor the Son, but the Father alone. And so that means that after verse 36, what follows is Jesus and the second coming.
got it.
And the problem with it is when you start reading what comes and what follows here, it doesn't at all sound like anything related to a second coming and Jesus raising dead bodies, from the earth, blowing up the earth. None of that's there. This is back to the same type of language that you find in the first part of Matthew chapter 24, where you've got flat roofs, you've got cloaks that are important. You have the Sabbath legislation still going on. So what you find after this is representative of the way people were living during Jesus' day.
Right.
It doesn't have any futurity to it at all.
Right.
It's the present reality. The language is that way.
And you're still connecting that with verse 34, truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. We have to remind ourselves, we still got to go back a verse or two. He's already made a time statement. He's already set the stage as far as who is going to experience whatever this is.
Yes.
Right?
And it's going to be important for us as a reminder to go up to verse 27. For just as the lightning comes from the east and flashes even to the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Well, that's before verse 34, where it says, truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. And that has to include verse 27. So the coming that's mentioned, verse 27, has to fit within that generation. And plus you see the same thing in verse 30, and then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the tribes of the land will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. That precedes verse 34.
And if we go to Luke, it's going to be a different order.
Luke 17.
Luke
yes.
17,
So go back to.
So even that's going to be.
Yeah. When you go to Luke 17, he uses the same signs, and some of those signs are before this verse, and some of the signs are after this verse.
And so again, what I'm trying to get out of it from you and for anyone that's watching or listening, even possibly reading, is how to just stay grounded in reading this chapter. Because in reading this chapter, if you understand the setting, if you understand who he's talking to, who Jesus is talking to, who he's addressing, that time period, that's going to give you handles for, well, it'll give you good hermeneutical handles in one sense too, just how to read the Bible, right? Because this is definitely a chapter where you can get lost if you don't have a good sense of apocalyptic language, time statements.
Yes, you have to stick to the text. Look at audience relevance in here. See if there are any audience references, like we saw in Matthew 24, 20, and 23, is the second person plural is used throughout. And so this is obviously referring to them. Verse 33, it says, even so you too, when you see all these things, recognize that it or he is near, right at the doors. I believe the reference there is to the doors of the temple, because now we're back to verse 20, the early part of the chapter, where Jesus says, not one stone here will be left upon another. They all be torn down. And Jesus is the one who actually comes using the Roman armies in order to do this and destroying the temple. It's like the doors are going to be blown open, and this whole thing is going to be demolished. Not one stone is going to be left upon another.
And we started this whole series in Matthew 23. Before we got to 24, we set up woe to you, all the woes, this generation, this generation, this generation. Everyone agrees that in Matthew 23, this generation, he's speaking to that generation, to those Pharisees. All the woes come upon, he is saying is going to come upon you in this generation. This generation is wicked. And here we get to verse 34. That word comes right back in. Truly I say to you, this generation. You would have to do some interesting gymnastics there to say all of chapter 23 was that generation. But in the same conversation, the same continued conversation, somehow it flips. I mean, that seems...
I would be confused, because in Matthew 23:36, Jesus goes through those woes. Truly I say to you, and then where Jesus says, fill up then the measure of the guilt of your fathers. That same language is used, by the way, by Stephen in Acts chapter 7. You serpents, you brood of vipers, how shall you escape the sentence of hell? And then verse 36, truly I say to you, all these things shall come upon this generation. And I've done a lot of debates with this, and I recall the debate I had with Thomas Ice. And he said, yes, verse 36 refers to that generation, but when you get to verse 34, it refers to a future generation.
Wait, so he's saying 34 is what?
Chapter 23:36 refers to that present generation. So here he admits.
Okay, he admits
the near demonstrative. This is being used to refer to that generation.
Okay.
But in Matthew 24:34, he says, no, this is referring to a different coming, the second coming. Even though the same language is used, truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away. It seems to me, if Jesus had a future generation in mind, truly I say to you, that generation will not pass away. But that doesn't make any sense, because verse 33 says, even so you too, when you see all these things, recognize that he is near, right at the doors.
Let's do a thought experiment in regards to Thomas Ice in verse 34, Matthew 24:34. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Why does he have to have that generation future?
Well, he actually does something different with this particular verse. He adds to it. He takes something away and he adds to it. He and Tim LaHaye wrote a book called Charting the End Times. And in that, here's what they do. Even, let's see, truly I say to you, the generation that sees these signs will not pass away until all these things take place. So they take out the word this, and then they add the generation that sees these signs.
All right, now, you've debated Thomas Ice.
Yes.
Did you debate him post that change in changing the text?
I believe yes, I did. Yes.
How does one justify changing the words there?
Well, you come in with an already set of presuppositions.
But there's a Greek document here.
I know.
No, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying, like...
That's the question.
Okay, but... Okay, then different thought experiment. If he were to believe that this generation in verse 34 was the generation he's speaking to, why would that be a problem for him?
Well, then you got all these... It would ruin his entire system, because all these things have to deal with a supposed great tribulation that takes place during a 7-year period in the future, which is Daniel's 70th week of the 70 weeks of years, with a gap between the 69th week and the 70th week, which is now 2,000 years.
Okay, so because why can't you just take Matthew 24 in the context that seems to be that generation and say, this was fulfilled in AD 70, done, Matthew 24, 25, that was completed. Now I'm going to go to Revelation and we're going to talk about future things. Why does one have to not, why would someone not want to give up Matthew 24? There's a lot of other verses you could, I mean, this is pretty clear. It's this generation. I mean, can't you go to Thessalonians? Can't you go to Revelation? Can't you go to 1 Peter? I mean, there's other places to get a second coming of Jesus.
Well, but the thing is, you've got Mark 13, you have Matthew 21 through 25, as we're going to see. You have Luke 21, Luke 17, Luke 19. You have all of these sections of Scripture that are pointing to the same event. I mean, that's a lot of stuff.
So he knows then that there's a thread here.
Yes.
And if you were to undo the thread right here in Matthew 24, the first book of the New Testament.
Yes.
The first prophetic end times big category is Matthew 24. If you unravel that,
oh, the whole system falls apart. Because I'll tell you what the reason is.
So they know.
Oh, for sure.
No one's being dumb here and just saying, no, I'm just principled on this word generation and I think it means future.
Yeah,
they know if I give up this word generation right here, I've given up the farm.
Oh, yes, they do. And that's why they spend so much time trying to get around it. This type of generation will not pass away until all these things take place. This race will not pass away until all these things take place. The generation that sees these signs will not pass away. They do everything they can to get around what the Greek word genia means by adding, taking words away and adding words in order to make it work. And people say, well, it can mean race. And I said, okay, let's go Matthew's gospel, go to Matthew chapter 1, verse 17, and plug in the word race every time you see the word generation. And it doesn't work. And that's the same Greek word, genia. It means generation, not race. There's another word for race is genos, but this isn't it. So yeah, the whole thing falls apart when you do this.
You've learned a little Hebrew.
Little Hebrew.
Right. Isn't there something you learn in Hebrew? There's a section, if you learn that section, you kind of get every word in Hebrew. There's like a paragraph that you memorize, or there's a section of scripture where if you kind of memorize that part in Hebrew, you've kind of got a good sense of every word in Hebrew. I remember I heard from you there was that was part of your Hebrew class was you memorized a certain section.
No, I haven't had that. No.
It's sort of like when they do voice translation. There's a sentence they give you. The fox did something. It gives every intonation of your voice, right?
Yeah, there may be, but I don't know what it is.
Matthew 24 seems for me to be that for hermeneutics. If you learn Matthew 24, if you can get your mind wrapped around Matthew 24, if you cannot cheat in Matthew 24, it gives you handles on how to read the Bible. Like if you just learned one chapter and forced yourself to learn the rules of exegesis, hermeneutics, words, grammar, time, everything you were saying, like if you could just get Matthew 24, man, it would pay off.
Yeah, and it's revolutionary because of the way we're taught eschatology today, that this is a passage about wars and rumors of wars, famines and earthquakes, and as if there weren't wars and rumors of wars when this was taking place. You got earthquakes that are also mentioned in the gospel and in the book of Acts. You have a famine mentioned in Acts chapter 11, 28. False prophets in First John chapter 4. It's all over the place. And one of the fascinating things about this is, I'm going a little off course here a bit, but it just shows you what I'm about to tell you. Shows you the exegetical gymnastics they go through in order to support their position. You go to Daniel chapter 9, verse 24 through 27. Daniel 70 weeks. They find, remember, this is just four verses. They find the Antichrist in there, but word Antichrist isn't there. Yeah. They find a gap between the 69th and 70th week. There's no mention of a gap. Yeah. They find the Antichrist making a covenant with with Israel. There's no mention of that.
Right.
There is no mention of the Antichrist breaking the covenant with Israel. So 4 verses, all the things that they say are in there aren't there.
Is that the cutoff?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
The many.
Right. It's all, it's,
Right.
you know, and they'll say that's the Antichrist doing
Right.
that. Well, the Antichrist isn't mentioned. So they've got 4 verses that they can't find the stuff that they need in order to do it. Then you get to Matthew chapter 24, where so much is specific. This generation, when you see the abomination of desolation,
Right.
all of this stuff. Now there's some, we've already discussed some of these. There's some complicated issues here, but we are restrained by what I believe are the bookends, at least through verse 34. It refers to that generation and that generation alone. And you'll find the same thing in Mark 13, Luke 21. So now, not only do you have 2 witnesses, you've got 3 witnesses telling you the same thing. And that's pretty significant. Then, go ahead.
So look, I've come to you for your commentary on this. So if I accept 34 and 35 are together, this is your class in one sense. You get to teach it, right? So your commentary on this is 34 and 35 are together. They flow right into each other, okay? And the controlling operating system here is this generation, talking to them.
Yeah.
If I accept that, and if I don't make a break, especially coming up here to verse 36 in a second, then we've already established whatever is said after it, because it says, but concerning that day and hour, no one knows, right? That day, I'm assuming we're talking about what he's been talking about. It doesn't matter what gets said after this. We're going to go through it. But it has to be then. It has to be referring to the destruction of the temple, Jesus coming back in judgment on the temple.
And there are commentators out there for a very long time who've said, this is what this is all about. So much of the New Testament is about that. But you made something, point earlier, okay, they could go to the book of Revelation in order to kind of, we don't need this.
Yes,
we can go to the book of Revelation. Well, the problem, you go to the book of Revelation, the language is completely different. You're not getting this chronology here. You're not getting these specific events that Jesus is pointing out.
Right.
What you find in Revelation chapter 4, John is taken up into heaven. He's seeing signs and symbols of things. Now, not that there aren't signs and symbols here, but the whole book is John up in heaven seeing all this. Plus you've got the time markers. These things must soon take place. In the very first verse, first chapter, the first verse, the last chapter in the 6th verse, and then in verse 3 in Revelation chapter 1, the time is near. You go to the last chapter, 22:10, time is near.
Right, yeah.
And you go down to verse 9, and John says he's a fellow partaker in the tribulation.
Right. Then
you have this address to 7 existing churches in chapters 2 and 3. They were in existence then.
Right.
And so Revelation doesn't help at all.
So 36 then, but concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only.
Yeah.
What do you got there?
Well, again, I think if this is talking about, truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place.
Okay.
I'm telling you the generation, but I'm not going to be I'm not going to be specific as to what the day and the hour will be.
Got it.
And then when you go to Luke's gospel, and it says, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, get out of town. But earlier in Matthew's gospel, Jesus says here, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken of through Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on his housetop not go down to get the things out that are in the house. You don't know the day and the hour, but there are certain signs in the lead up to this event that's going to take place, where not one stone is going to be left upon another, that you need to get out of town. But the day and the hour is not going to be known for this. I'm not going to be able to tell you it's going to be, what we would be say today, September 22nd,
Right.
AD 68 or
Right.
whatever the case might be at that time. You're not going to know that. So you better pay attention to the existing signs. Now, one of the reasons why this does not work for today, we don't. Where are we going to go? When you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, do we have to now go to Israel and go to the mountains outside of Judea?
Right.
This is obviously local.
That's one I've never known. Like I try to be as gracious as possible and hear people out. I guess the best explanation one can give is well, he's speaking to that audience, so they acknowledge that. But he's giving them sort of a picture of what they would do, and we're going to do what would be the equivalent of what they had to do. But even that doesn't make sense, because then I would have to go to the mountains around me. It gets wonky. But why then, 37, for as were the days of Noah. Okay, so now we get this narrative connector, right?
Yes.
For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day when Noah entered the ark. And they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man.
Okay, so look at verse 39. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Well, we just saw it in verse 27. For just as the lightning comes from the east and flashes even from the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. It's the same language. And we saw for verse 34 that everything before verse 34 takes place before that generation passes away. It seems to me that Jesus is talking about the same coming at that particular period of time. He doesn't say, so shall the coming at the end of the, some distant event will be the Son of Man be. It's the same language that you find up in verse 27. It's the same. It's the same coming. Now, some people will look at this and say, "Oh, but it's describing how evil things were, that they were eating and drinking, they were married and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark." Well, if you look at that language in the New Testament, there's nothing evil about eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage.
Right. It's normal. It's common life.
Yeah, we just had a nice cookie over here.
Yeah.
We were eating. I got my water here.
Right.
I'm drinking. I'm married. You're married. You have children.
Right.
We were doing normal things.
Yeah.
So normal things were going on.
So just a picture of this is normal life.
Right. And the interesting thing about all this, remember, Jesus says, "Not one stone here will be left upon another." That the temple was being rebuilt. By the time you get to AD 63 or 64, it's nearly completed.
Yeah.
And it looks grand. It is the best thing you could ever imagine. And as things were going on in those days, there was no indication that anything bad was going to happen. Things were normal and going on until some Jews decided they wanted to fight, the 1,000-pound gorilla of the Roman Empire, and then things turned around very quickly.
Which is a really fascinating narrative thing going on in this story that it's not explicit throughout the New Testament, but the temple's it's not done yet.
Right. Yeah.
Which is to me just a really fascinating twist, right? That Jesus is building a new temple, right? He's about to build, or in the process, have whatever language you want to use, right? While the temple's being literally, it gets completed. By the time it's completed, it's gone within a couple of years.
Oh yeah.
So this whole, what is it, an allegory? Is it a metaphor? What am I looking for, Jake, here? But like the symbolism of like, they're still finishing the temple while all this is going on in the New Testament. All these letters.
And they just had the true temple in their midst.
Right. But they're still building. And then when they finish it, even just from a historical standpoint, if you were doing a historical narrative, the Jews finally get like the greatest thing finished. And within 2-3 years, it's gone.
It's completely gone.
Probably made it more hard. The temptation of going back was probably more severe, of seeing this is so glorious, when Christians are being persecuted and they're saying don't go
Right,
back.
right. You're like, but
that's-
look,
it's
like,
done.
it'd be like it's like we have one building here for the new school.
Yeah.
Let's say for some reason I was convinced, we're not going to that school anymore, right? We've got problems, right? And a few years go by, and then the next building goes. It's just getting. And it's like, they got the track there now, and they got there's a performing arts center there.
There's
a football stadium,
field.
man. It's looking real good.
Yeah.
Come on back.
And you're being told, don't go back to that. Don't go back.
Right.
To that. It's all gonna be
But
destroyed.
it's
you just finished
it's
it.
looking amazing.
Yeah,
right?
God's on our side.
Right, God's on our
Yeah.
side, right? And so if God got the temple finished, I'm pretty sure He can fight the Romans.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because God wouldn't finish the
Why would he
temple,
finish the temple?
Yes.
and then just to have it destroyed. Like, this is all lining up,
Oh,
right?
I know, and this is why you get John chapter 2, where Jesus cleansed the temple for the first time, and he says his disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for thy house will consume me." The Jews therefore answered and said to them, "What sign do you show to us, seeing to it that you do these things?" Jesus answered and said to them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." The Jews therefore said, "It took 46 years to build this temple." Now, that was 46 years in, say, AD 30.
Right.
So it's been been constructing it for 46 years.
Right.
It's probably almost another 40 years before it gets to the point where it's going to be destroyed.
Wow.
It took 46 years to build this temple, and you will raise it up in 3 days. But he was speaking of the temple of his body. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
They're looking at this stone temple. They had the temple in their midst, and probably hearing this language about the destruction of the temple, they're saying, "You people are crazy. Look at this." And I think this is important when you look at Second
And
Peter.
the temple was their life. It was heaven and earth.
It was the center of everything.
Right.
N.T. Wright says the temples where heaven and earth met each other.
Yeah, like this is their whole world.
Yes.
If you take away temple, you have no world. You have no access to heaven.
Yeah.
Heaven has no access to you. And I'm pretty sure people have made that argument. Bray pulls up a bunch of verses in the Old Testament that Israel is heaven and earth. Right? That is heaven and earth, right?
Yep.
So I guess I never really connected that. Like, it was done, and within 3 years it's gone.
Yes.
So there's a war coming.
Yes.
Destruction's coming.
Well, before you do that,
Okay.
now we look at Second Peter 3. Remember, the temple is being built. This Jesus was crucified. He was a fake Messiah. Stories that he was raised from the dead. Obviously fictional. They're probably thinking. The Romans probably covered it up.
Right.
And so they're building. They were building. Thought when the temple was going to be finished, God was on their side, and it was a manifestation that the true Messiah was going to come to the temple.
Right.
Which the Old Testament predicted, which
Right.
Jesus in fact did. He
Right.
came to the temple. So then you get to 2 Peter 3, verse 3, it says, "Know this first of all, that in the last days of what?
Right.
The last days of that order that was supposed to pass away,
Of that heaven and earth. Or of the
mockers,
heaven and earth.
mockers will come with their mocking, following after their own lusts, and saying, 'Where is the promise of his coming?'" Well, because Jesus promised that he was going to come before that generation passed away, the temple is more glorious than ever, mocking, "Your Messiah is false.
Right.
Temple is here. Where is he?"
Right.
This isn't mocking those 2,000 years in the future. There's nothing to mock in
Right.
today. So
And by the way, it's almost like you're alluding to, or the concept is alluding to, you could maybe make the case prior to the temple being finished, like, well, it's not finished yet. Right? So maybe we won't make fun of anybody yet. Because in theory, the temple's not done yet, right? This is a pretty big deal. Then it gets finished, like last day, we're done, and we go, okay, now
it's time. Yeah.
let's make fun of some people.
We can
Yes.
mock now.
Yeah, right. Because look, it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because God clearly wouldn't just finish this to then have it destroyed.
And you're right. Within a few years.
And Jesus is
it's
saying,
gone.
yeah, well, when you see that spot. So then 40 is just continuing on the concept,
Well,
right?
one of the things dispensationalists used to say, that the rapture was mentioned here. and that the church would be taken off the earth, and they did not understand until the flood came and took them all away. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And they would say, that's the rapture of the church.
Oh, because
some will be,
because the taken language.
some will be taken, some will be what? Left behind. That's what the whole Left Behind series was about. The problem is the Noah analogy is the ones who are taken away in the flood. The ones who are left behind are Noah and his family.
So the wicked are taken.
The wicked
not
are the
righteous.
exactly. So it's just the complete opposite of the dispensational view, which today they don't hold this view. Many of them don't hold this view anymore, but it's still popular as a result of the whole Left Behind series.
So then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and one left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and one left. Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming.
And there's a precedent for this in chapter, I think it's 25, verse 11. Is this right? 20? No, I'm sorry. Second Kings 25:11. 2 Kings 25:11. The language is very, very similar.
Well, while you're finding that, it still has never made sense to me. Then 2 men will be in the field. One will be taken and one left. I gotta be honest, I still don't know what that means. I get the I know what concept I'm trying to force that into. But if I try to force it into Jerusalem being encircled, first of all, how do you get out? Well, the Romans did leave at one point, so the Christians did have an opportunity to get out. But even if that was the case, I don't know how someone would be taken, because I'm thinking if the Romans came in, one would be taken. But why? But how would one be taken and then one left? I've never been comfortable with what that means.
I think the reason for this is that I'll give you this verse, and this might explain it. This is from 2 Kings chapter 25. This is Jerusalem burned and plundered. So this is under the old covenant. It says, then the rest of the people who were left in the city, and the deserters who had deserted to the king of Babylon, and the rest of the multitude, the captain of the guard carried away into exile. But the captain of the guard left some of the poorest of the land to be vine dressers and plowmen.
Oh, have you heard? Have you connected that?
Second Kings 25:11, because what Rome did, he took some of them into captivity, but they wanted the land. You know, somebody had to cultivate the land.
Right.
You look all around here with all your wheat fields.
Yeah.
Somebody's out there having to do that.
Right.
If let's say some foreign force came in here, decided to get rid of everybody, said, wait a minute, we should get rid of this. Now we need to keep some of these people here to do that. And so 2 Kings 25:11.
I mean, because I could fit that into my some get taken into slavery, or some get killed, and some get left, meaning maybe some hide, or some I'm already sold on that generation. Judgment, I know that. But sometimes you just kind of go, I don't know how that fits, though.
Yeah.
But that's fascinating.
Could I read a quote from your book?
Sure.
That you explain this question. You actually say on page 197, you're quoting John Gill. John Gill writes in his commentary on this passage, the whole world, the ungodly, every man, woman, child, except 8 persons only, Noah and his wife and 3 sons, and their wives were taken away in judgment. What does Gill say about those in the field? They shall be taken away by eagles, the Roman army, either killed or carried captive by them. So that's Gill. And then you say the Bible gives its own commentary on the meaning of took them all away in Luke 17:27-29. Destroyed them all is equivalent to took them all away. So you're saying taking them all away, to your question, is connected with destroyed them all. It's destruction.
Yeah, and judgment. That language.
Yeah.
These guys use that language all the way through here to describe what was taking place here. That whole system was supposed to pass away in tranquility. Our Messiah had come.
Right.
Let's embrace him. We don't need his temple anymore. It's use it as a museum.
Yeah.
Which is what we do oftentimes with, you go into a city. What's that building there? Oh, that's a museum now. But some, I'll give you a great example is the Biltmore House.
Hmm.
You go to Asheville, North Carolina. You ever been to the
Yeah,
Biltmore?
yeah,
Biltmore House. Essentially, it's a museum.
Right.
And the temple would have been that. Put artifacts in it. Said, look at this. Look what we used to have to do here.
I guess not forget. I just didn't really fully put together. Like that is, people were left behind.
Yeah.
Like, and not everyone was slaughtered. I mean, you got close to 1 million slaughtered. Josephus says close to 1 million or whatever slaughtered. But you're right. People were slaughtered. People were also taken into captivity.
Yes.
People were also scattered.
There's actually a marble frieze of them carrying the artifacts from the temple. There's a frieze of them doing that. The Romans took that.
And the Arch of Titus.
Yes.
It
may be. I think. Yeah.
Because I know that's in there in the Arch of Titus.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
They had that because we had this conversation
Yes.
that I thought the Ark was in that image.
But then I think I was talking to someone that might have been debatable if it's something else.
No,
I don't know.
But Josephus.
But yeah, well, that's.
Josephus
yes.
says that when they
It
rebuilt
was
the
empty.
temple,
It was nothing.
that they didn't have the Ark.
Yes.
Right.
Josephus says the
Yeah.
Ark was not in the Holy of Holies.
Yes.
No.
Exactly.
There's
Now-
all-
Now, of all the things that maybe Josephus could say for any other sort of motives,
Right.
what motive would Josephus have to say that the most important thing to
It's
them?
not even there.
Because he says it never came back from it was
Nebuchadnezzar,
Nebuchadnezzar.
Well, he just didn't watch Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, no, I mean,
He would
that's-
have.
you
That
know,
was
right.
it was right there the whole
Yeah,
time.
the whole time.
Well,
You just-
Josephus needed a 2,000-year gap between the
Yeah,
weeks,
yeah.
right? Is
I
what?
mean, you even
is it-
quote John Wahlberg admitting that this is not the rapture.
Yeah.
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 This
This is
it's obviously
dispensationalists have given that up. That's not what it's describing. So
Okay, so then we get to
beginning with verse 42.
we're at 42. Well, the two women. Therefore, stay awake.
Right.
By the way, when we see therefore in the Bible, what should we be thinking? What's the Bible?
Why is
Teacher,
the
student,
What's
or,
it?
yeah,
What's
what-
it there for?
What's it
Yeah.
there for? Right?
Based upon what you just learned, here is something you now need to consider.
Okay.
And the fact that
I've told you a bunch of things.
right.
Therefore.
Be on the alert. Jerusalem surrounded by armies.
Right.
Abomination of desolation. Those types of things. Be alert that this is going to happen. Now you can escape this. You can escape it if you're smart. This is going to happen.
Right.
It's a prophetic inevitability, but you can in fact escape it and probably come back because they didn't take everybody away. They wanted people to stick around in order to till the land and fix all that. But they didn't want zealots. They didn't want the
Wow.
They didn't want
I
the
never even
rebellious
put that
people.
one together. I never put that one together.
Yeah.
Get out. And so in one sense, get out, not just get out, and the early Christians kept going and they went down most likely, and you get Pella and all that stuff, right? But there would have been people going like, we're not in this fight.
Yes, right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the Essenes were like, we're not in this fight. Right? Although they were probably kind of excited. But people would have been like, we're not going to fight you. And we think of like the Romans just encircling and looking to kill everyone and all that, which I don't know, was there but did that also happen
Didn't they pull
in
back?
another yes, right.
Yeah.
They did. They pulled back. That would have
That
been
got people.
to say, hey,
Yeah.
when you see Jerusalem encircled, get out. Well, you can't get out if you're encircled.
Yeah.
Then they pulled back to go fight another war. They had to go fight something, and the Christians said, we're out of here. This is what Jesus said. We're going to go. And then they come back. But I guess I think in terms of the Romans coming in and just killing everybody, they only would have killed people in that city who were wanting to fight. Meaning there were probably spectators going like, it's going down. And the Romans weren't concerned with people on the hill watching.
No, you didn't have no sword, no spear, or
Right.
whatever. The Romans aren't stupid. They didn't want more people to engage in the battle.
Right.
And if they knew that these people were going to be left alone, then leave them alone. They're not going to go after them. Now, surrounding the city, I'm sure it was. The Romans were tacticians.
Yeah.
They'd done this before. And the best thing to do was to encircle, starve out the people, which in fact happened.
They did.
Some of the people who still didn't get the message, they go to Masada,
Right.
and they're starved out in Masada, which was, I think, it was AD 73. And the other people left, and then maybe if they came back to the land, no trouble. Romans, they weren't given any trouble. I'm sure that they had soldiers there making sure this didn't, like putting out fires, to make sure all the fires were put out in return to the rebellion. And some Jews stayed in the land.
Yeah.
So when people talk about today, the Jews need to come back to the land, not all the Jews, in fact, left. Many of them were killed. Some of them were taken to captivity.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I think when you go to Acts chapter 8, there are lots of people who left Jerusalem and went to what we know now as Asia Minor, and there were Jews throughout the diaspora up there, and the gospel goes to them. We read that in James and in First Peter. So yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Verse 42.
42.
Be on the alert, for you do not know which day your Lord is coming. Which coming is he talking about here? It's the same coming he talked about in verse 27, and it's the same coming he talked about in verse 30, and it's the same coming that Jesus talks about when he's on trial in Matthew chapter 26, 68. It's that same coming. This isn't a separate coming. We already established that this transition text does not separate verses 1 through 34 from the rest of the chapter and throws all this into what we would call today the lead up to the second coming. It makes no sense, especially as you start reading through the rest of chapter 24 and into chapter 25.
43. But know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect.
Yeah.
When
you do not
expect.
think
Yeah.
he will. You don't know.
Therefore,
the day and
you
the
also
hour.
must be ready.
Yeah. You don't know the day and the hour, which Jesus talked about. But I've given you all these signs, and I'm giving you this advice. Be on the alert, because you don't know when this is going to take place. You just need to be on the alert. Like if you knew there were thieves out there, you're going to protect your house better than you did before.
But see, 43, I still feel like I'm missing something. But you know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. I don't know what it's talking about there. Conceptually, I had this idea of breaking in, judgment, disruption, but I don't know who the master is and what the point of that verse is.
He shows up, the master shows up in verse 45. Now, I don't know if it's a different angle of what's going on here. Okay, so when...
But know this, but what's the point here, Gary, when you read this? But know this, that if the master of the house, what house are we talking about?
I think his own domicile, his own house.
Okay, so just if a master
right.
of a house, okay, had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, okay, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. I guess I get confused there because I think about the temple and the house and being broken into.
Because it says your house.
Your house, yeah, I get, yeah, your house.
Right.
Like I get a little, but is the point, and this is what's funny because you think that's a real simple sentence, and maybe for some people it is, but I read that and I go, so wait, he's telling people to get out, right? He's telling people to get out, but in this verse, he's telling people why you would not have to get out, because you would know when the thief is coming and you'd be prepared.
Yeah, but why would if this was referring to the temple, why would the master stay in the house?
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So that verse has always sort of just been like, is it just? I'm always left a little. Therefore, you must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect.
Well, you're dealing with verse. Who then is the faithful and sensible slave?
Maybe we have to keep going.
Whom his master put in charge of his household, to give them their food at the proper time. Blessed is that slave whom his master finds so doing when he comes.
Okay.
So now we've got an analogy here which I think is referring to the coming of Jesus. You don't know the day and the hour, so you need to be on the alert here. And he pulls this idea together, which was common to that era, that they would understand.
He says, "Who then is the faithful and wise servant?" Is he referring back to something I'm forgetting? Because it seems like it would read, "Who then is a faithful and wise servant?" But he says here, at least my translation, "Who then is the faithful and wise servant, whom his master has set over his household, to give them their food at the proper time?" That switch there, is it just is?
Well, I think if you go on here, you're seeing that there are different types of slaves and their master.
Okay.
So it says, "Blessed is that slave whom his master finds so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you, that he will put him in charge of all his possessions." Well, you're putting somebody in charge of all your possessions. This is a very trustworthy person. You're willing to do that, especially if you're going to go away somewhere and come back and find. I think of the scene in the movie Ben-Hur, when Ben-Hur is thought to be dead. His faithful servant hid all of his assets,
right,
so that he believed he was going to return, and in fact he did return.
Right. Which we just went back and watched that again. I was blown away. Yeah. At Ben-Hur, I was like, "How? That's a heavy movie."
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Heavy movie.
Yeah. But verse 48. "But if that evil slave says in his heart, my master is not coming for a long time, and shall begin to beat his fellow slaves and eat and drink with drunkards, the master of that slave will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour," so day and hour, again, using this example here, "expect him at an hour which he does not know, and shall cut him in pieces, and assign him a place with the hypocrites. Weeping shall be there, and the gnashing of teeth." Now this is where someone like Ken Gentry says, here this must be referring to something in the distant future, because "but if that evil slave says in his heart, my master is not coming for a long time." And see, long time here means distant future. Now, any of my students were reading the Bible, what would you do? You would look up to see how long time is used elsewhere in the Gospels.
I have delayed.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah. And so while in one sense here, the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70, Jesus says this generation will not pass away, and if a generation is 40 years, God is giving them 40 years.
Yeah, it's a long.
Right.
I mean, this connects with the scoffing.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, because all this time is going to pass. 40 years is going to pass.
Right.
And the whole temple is going to get finally finished. That's a long time. And by the way, that house is looking real good.
Yeah. But the key here is the master comes back to the same slave he left in charge of his possessions.
Right.
He doesn't come back to a future generation of slaves, the descendants of those slaves. He comes back to the same guy. So this isn't talking about something in the distant future. The master returns to the same person he left in charge of his possessions. So that's number one. And the other one is the phrase "long time" is relative, depending on the circumstances. And I'll give you an example of this. I think it's Luke chapter 23. Luke 23, verse 8. "Now Herod was very glad when he saw Jesus, for he had wanted to see him for a long time." How long is a long time? Jesus' ministry was only 3 years, so it is relatively relative. But I think the clincher on this is John chapter 5. John 5, verse 1, "And after these things there was a feast of the Jews, and Jews went up to Jerusalem, and there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porticos. in these lay a multitude of those who were sick, blind, lame, and withered. And then you go down to verse 5, and a certain man was there who had been 38 years in his sickness. 38. Verse 6, when Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been a long time in that condition. So long time.
Well, it's interesting that it's 38 years.
I know. That's why I emphasize that. Yeah. A generation is 40.
But the war starts like...
There's 66 maybe.
Yeah, which is like 38 years.
Yeah. So you got two things going against you, saying this is yet something in the distant future. The fact that the master returns to the same slave he put in charge, and long time does not necessarily mean so far.
I'm doing this in real time. I think I got it now. I'm doing this in real time, which is fun, because now as I'm reading this, who then is the faithful and wise servant whom his master has set over his household to give them their food at the proper times? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find doing so when he comes. The picture is just responsibility. Right? Yeah. Master has set responsibility to the servant.
The things I've given you.
Things I've given you to be faithful with. Right? When he comes back, he sees that. I've given you provisions, all that comes back, and then it switches. But if that wicked servant says to himself, meaning that same scenario, but you got a wicked servant in there, which I think now switches to the house that I'm thinking of, which is the temple. Yeah. Now I get this switch, right? I was trying to put it all together.
It's a wheat and tares.
There we go. Right. Yeah.
Sheep and goats that we're gonna find about later. I mean,
because my master's delayed. So the same servant that says, well, you know what, he's not really coming back.
Yeah. Well, now you're back.
And look, we got the temple. Everything's built. Right. There we go.
Okay.
It's the same master that comes back. Yeah. So the timing has to be. He has to be alive.
Yeah.
It's not a different master 2,000 years later.
That's why Jesus says there's some standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man come in his kingdom.
Right.
So, anyway.
Yes. No, it's clicking. Okay. So. At that point, we're done with Matthew 24, but Matthew 24 still ends, though, with, I'm assuming contextually we're saying this is the temple being destroyed. This is the judgment upon...
Right.
But that judgment is then connected with the phrase... in that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Yes, yeah.
Which I know for me is bells of hell, like the alarms going off when I hear weeping and gnashing of teeth. What's funny, I never really connected though that for me, I would then have to have hell as a place where you're also cut in pieces. Like that. That's a pretty descriptive, like, that this judgment's coming. And will cut him in pieces and put him with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's a pretty heavy description, but we're not thinking that's hell right there.
I don't think so. I think that what's going on here, these people who so rejected Jesus as the Messiah, turned him over to Herod, turned him over to Pilate. The religious leaders who were what does Jesus call them throughout the Gospels? He calls them the hypocrites.
Hypocrites, yeah.
You hypocrites. And so...
Brood of vipers, hypocrites.
Right. And as they see this thing taking place, there'll be weeping. Weeping shall be there, and the gnashing of teeth. It's kind of like, oh my, everything. What could it have been like if I had believed? And maybe they're very similar to what happened to Paul, and others. They put their hands over their head, even though they see Jesus. They said, we have no king but Caesar. It all comes pouring down on them.
But that term gnashing of teeth is also in Acts when they stone Stephen.
Oh, yeah.
It says they gnash their teeth. And so I used to...
It's the hypocrites that do that.
Yeah, I used to always read that there will be like weeping, like this crying and gnashing. It was like anguish, but the gnashing of teeth seems to be anger at God.
Yeah.
Anger at, right? So like that gnashing of teeth is not that you're just so in turmoil that you're gnashing. No, gnashing of teeth seems to be, I hate you.
When they heard these things, they were cut to the heart, and they gnashed on him with their teeth.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So that seems to tie in as well with like this concept that it's not just anguish, it's people that hate God or hate the truth. So then if we take that from Matthew 24,
and remember, there's no real chapter division when
right.
we look at the manuscripts.
Right.
So this is for our convenience.
Right. Which means 25 is going to really continue because it doesn't end until chapter 26. Right? That's when, because chapter 26 starts when Jesus had finished. Right? So chapter 25 is still a continuation of what we read in 24.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not completed yet. We don't have a period yet at the end of this category. So you get the parable of the 10 virgins and the parable of
the talents,
and then you get, my heading here is the final judgment.
Right.
Right. So we've got 2 parables. Okay.
Yes.
So let's just break down conceptually, just because chapter 25, then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise, for when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, they all became drowsy and slept, but at midnight there was a cry, "Here is the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all those virgins rose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise answered, saying, "Since there will not be enough for us and for you, go rather to the dealers and buy for yourselves." And while they were going to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was shut. Afterward the other virgins came also, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he answered, "Truly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." Now, this is a parable.
Right.
I don't want to break down every verse.
Yeah, right. Yes.
This is a parable, this is a story. What should people be thinking about this parable? What stands out to you as far as the key things about what this parable is saying?
Well,
because it's a parable.
There's another wedding feast here in chapter 22.
Right.
And
which I think we went over.
We
which was really interesting because you had brought up who possibly those are the wolves in sheep clothing. There were some really interesting things that I'd never thought about before.
And in verse 7 it talks about set their city on fire, which is also appears in Luke 19:27, which is dealing with like what we're doing today.
Yeah.
But verse 7, but the king was enraged and sent his armies and destroyed those murderers and set their city on fire. Is this an allusion to what happened to the temple
right.
in Jerusalem? Then he said to his slaves, "The wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy." And Jesus, "All you who are heavy laden, come unto me." Jesus invites everybody within the nation. "Go therefore to the main highways and many that you find there, invite to the wedding feast." And those slaves went out to the streets and gathered together all they found, both evil and good, and the wedding hall was filled with dinner guests. But when the king came and looked over the dinner guests, he saw there was a man not dressed in wedding clothes. And he said to him, "Friend, how did you get in?" And he was speechless. Then the king said to the servants, "Bind him hand and foot, cast him into the outer darkness. In the place there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Right.
For many are called, but few are chosen." I think this wedding motif is important. And I was just reading this from Mike Sullivan, who's doing extensive work on this. And he says this wedding motif, the groom was, it's not like today. When the wedding date was, where it was, where it's going to be. Bride was going to be at a certain time. He's late for the wedding. He's late for the wedding. No, this was something that was anticipated, but it was going to be a surprise. You had to wait for the bridegroom to come. And this is why this idea, you don't know the day and the hour. The bride did not know.
It's an event. And you're there, it could be a week, it could be, because obviously people are, this isn't you jump on the train and the flight.
Yeah.
People got to travel in. You got to build in some, there's got to be a
mystery,
buffer,
suspense.
right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing, not to be crude,
Yeah.
but it's the same thing where we can't fathom that, how people would consummate a marriage.
Yeah.
That there'd be a tent and you'd have the groomsmen were the protectors outside the tent, make sure no one came in to kill you. Like that's just like you.
Yes.
We're just like, what are you talking about, right? Like, we're so foreign to us, right? But this idea that you actually didn't know when. I mean, you were you knew the signs. You would probably hear murmuring. You would know. Hey,
Oh, we think we
saw
him
we
here
think someone's like no. But at some point there would be probably the trumpet or something or the shofar.
Yeah, wake up! The bride, bridegroom, the bride is anxious and
right,
ready and all that.
Right. I mean, so that's huge. Just again, we think of
I didn't come up with that. That
no,
was
that's Mike.
This,
yeah.
Did this work? And
okay.
I'm really anticipating
so that's
his
that
work
same.
on this.
So it's the same picture that we see here with the parable of the 10 virgins.
Yes, it's
right.
the same thing. It's the same bride, the same bridegroom, the same virgins. It's not like, oh, we missed the wedding date. Maybe it's next generation or the generation after that. No. This is all together at one particular period of time.
But then it jumps to, for it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. Now, before we get into this one starts to get a little bit more on the head for me. We can see the story here. It's almost like the first parable there is like, okay, I think there's a cultural context I'm missing, but people closer to this would have probably really understood this one. But when we get to this one, right, for it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So before I go through this, though, or even if we do, you have property, you have land being entrusted to servants.
Yes.
Okay, that's the setting. Okay, I'm gonna let you take it from here, because the fact that we have so much financial advice that comes out of this, right? And this is the one we go to, right? What's really happening here, Gary? What's going on with this property, and what's going on with the people who were put in charge of this property, the servants?
I think for me, I believe this has kind of eschatological ramifications to it, and using economics as the example of what's going on here.
Because he's not teaching economics here.
No,
it's assumed. This is assumed economics.
Right.
Right.
This is
everyone knows.
Oh, everybody knows.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
I think there's going to be an end to this. What's going to take place with the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. And people always ask, so now what? And I think this may be referencing that a bit as to how faithful are you going to be when this all takes place? Look, I just saw what happened with the Romans did. Maybe I ought to just bury my talent and not do anything with it. Oh. Or do you trust God and say, no, I'm going to invest my talent, because I'm not going to make the mistake that just because God brought this one judgment doesn't mean it's the end of everything.
Oh, that's
the life goes on, and you need to take your gifts and talents to rebuild.
See, he did this with the Antichrist. He was not where I thought he was going to be on the Antichrist. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's when we discovered he was a dispensationalist. But it was, but he's doing this now because I'm seeing just 80-70, 80-70, 80-70. I gave my people. You killed the prophets.
Yes.
You kept us away from the Gentiles. Yeah. You put them out. You wouldn't let them come in. You just completely were not faithful with what I gave you, right? You hoarded it. You hoarded the house of God, right? Which I'm sure you would say is true, and they did that. But the application there, he went to 80-70 and said, there would have been Christians going, well, what now? And if they were to think back on this, it wouldn't just be a fulfilled prophecy of what they're seeing. They now, which is I think what you're getting to, what happens now though? Okay, so we see things that are fulfilled. That's amazing. That's powerful. That's mind-blowing. It's all these things. But Gary went right to, but there was a Christian in AD 70 who had whatever was left in his pockets or on his back, looking at the city destroyed, the Romans just mopping it up, and them going, I better hold on to whatever I got and go hide it because they're
but what's Warren Buffett's one of his investment strategies? When you see blood in the streets, it's time to invest because all the values just start going down. Now you got some.
Did he get it from predators?
Where he got this from? I don't know where
he got it from Matthew 25.
But it's just we're afraid. You know, when you think about every time when something happens, what do people do? They sell all their stock. They sell it. They hoard it all, and other people go along. I've seen this before, friends. I'm just telling you, wait it out a little bit, get in, because now you can buy things on the cheap, and then you're going to be able to do all kinds of things with
Tesla drops 30, 40%, however many months ago, and people are like, they're done. And someone's going, okay.
And here you see
right?
Here you see the centerpiece of everything that Israel was completely destroyed, and you're going, what's left? And God's saying, I took everything away from you, so you move ahead.
Can I push this and get really evangelical here? No, really, like because
we haven't been evangelical yet.
Well, I mean, not this way. When God destroys everything in your life, you double down. Like that's what I'm getting out of this.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, because if you're on the hill. Meaning, if you're not in the war that you got caught up and you were stupid, right, to be in that, you joined up with the Afghanis and thought it'd be good to fight America because you had a little paradigm shift on the great Satan and you went over. And at that point, you're screwed. I get it. But if you got to the mountains and you're looking and God has destroyed everything, okay. I was faithful to get out. I did the one thing he said to do, and now it looks like it's all obliterated. Now, double down. Let's go all in.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just wondering.
That's faith and hope, right?
That's what I mean. That's the only thing you would have.
Yeah.
And a lot, like you said, a lot of people when they get scared, they hoard.
Yeah. True.
So is that Ananias and Sapphira like lying? Like I'm not trusting everything. I'm just not going to tell the apostles.
I think it's both. I still think it was. I think God was saying if you want to hold the value of Jerusalem in your pocket, it's going to lead to death. I think that's a crazy.
And some people did sell some of their extra lands because they knew that this was
right.
And who knows? Maybe they held on to that money, and then when the prices dropped even more, they went back and bought it.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, it was a good deal.
It was a good deal. Maybe the house was still there, and buy it on the cheap. Look at all the people who ended up being cast away. There's not a demand for housing anymore. I mean, this is why we talk about Christian worldview stuff.
Yes.
Gary North says you can't. It's not just one thing. You got to look at everything. There's, normal life was going on, normal economic activities were going on, but the reality of what God was going to do was something that entered history that could not be calculated except by those who believed what Jesus said. Yeah. And there was no indication that the end of the world was going to take place, but it was just going to be the end of that generation and the closing of the temple.
But you're not off the hook.
I know.
If it ended there, it would have been great, and then we could have just went to when Jesus had finished all these things. Yes. But and I'm wondering if we're going to come back to Luke in regards to the chronology. But in Matthew, we get to
that chronology. The Luke 17 and Matthew 24-25 chronology doesn't go in this far. Yeah. But look at verse 31. But when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all his angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. What is that from? We saw it earlier in Matthew chapter 16. Same language. Verse 27, for the Son of Man is going to come in the glory of his... well, I think, if I'm right here, I don't have my Greek out. For the Son of Man is about to come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then will recompense every man according to his deeds. So this isn't something that's in the distant future that's taking place. This is something that's taking place before that generation passed away. Verse 28 of Matthew chapter 16. Truly I say to you, there's some of those who are standing here who shall not taste death until they see the Son of Man come in his kingdom. So this forces us into that same generation.
Okay, but being forced into that, you still have to then make sense to the best of your ability, the details of what's being forced into that.
Yes.
Because 32 says, before him will be gathered all the nations.
The whole planet, right? Isn't that all the nations coming together?
At least all the known nations. Even if I grant oikumene,
yeah,
and it's known land, it's still I still got at least 7, 8, not 12, I don't know, whatever, 70, I don't remember 70 nations.
12,
Right, yeah.
nations.
Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats.
That's the big kicker right there.
Okay, we have to ask, is there similar language in the Old Testament that is an end of the world, functioning as an end of the world description of
I've looked and there isn't, so you need to.
Okay.
You can't go there.
Nope.
Go to Zephaniah.
No,
Zephaniah?
The most
no.
popular.
First of all, that's not even a book in the Bible. Zephaniah. Has anyone read Zephaniah?
Did you? I don't know if this will go on tape or not. Did you
Lots
watch?
of commentaries.
Was it? Who was it? Was it Zach or was it Bob Cruikshank? These two guys were talking eschatology, and they go to Zephaniah and saying this is being fulfilled. And one of the guys' comments was, "Oh, I haven't read Zephaniah in like 10 years." Oh, but he knew what it was going to say about all this. He hadn't the slightest idea. Yeah. So you go to verse 8, Zephaniah chapter 3, and this is a description of what is going to take place to. So if you go back to Zephaniah chapter 1, context and all this, and language from the Bible is so important. Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 1. The word of the Lord, which came to Zephaniah, son of Cushi, son of Gedaliah, son of Amariah, son of Hezekiah, in the days of Josiah, son of Amon, king of Judah. So this is not end of the world language, it's the end of their world language. I will completely remove everything from the face of the earth, declares the Lord. I will remove man and beast. I will remove the birds of the sky and the fish of the sea and the ruins along with the wicked. I will cut off man from the face of the earth, declares the Lord. Now you read that and you say, that's obviously talking about the second coming.
Which chapter is that again?
This is Zephaniah chapter 1, verses 2 and 3. But look at verse 4.
But chapter 2 says the same thing. Chapter 3 says the same thing over and over
Yeah.
and over.
Say land in verse 2?
Well,
mine says land.
Well, in chapter 3, it says the same thing, that for in the fire of my jealousy, all the earth shall be consumed. That's Zephaniah 3, 8.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So when you see the word earth or land, it's the same Hebrew word. It's eretz. And so is it land or is it the whole earth? And you can see this. It's kind of funny because you go to. We're getting a little far afield.
No,
I'm just trying to get people. This is just trying to get people to, trust your Bible and let the Bible inform you on how language is used and what it means. So if you go to Genesis chapter 41, verse 53, when the 7 years of plenty which had been in the land, verse 54, in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt. So when all the land of Egypt, so land, then you get down to verse 56, when the famine was spread over all the face of the earth, then you go look at verse 47, and the people of all the earth, the famine was severe in all the earth. Then you go to verse 6, and Joseph was ruler over the land. He was the one who sold all the people of the land, and Joseph's brothers came and bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. And guess what? It's Eretz. All the way through, it's Eretz. Not, and so you got to translate, well, we need earth here. No, it was local. The famine was local, very much like the famine in Acts 11:28 was local. And so most of our translations have world, but the Greek word there is oikumene, which...
Do you know why, I don't know if this is why in the Old Testament our English Bibles does have earth or land, or I can understand the Greek, there's 5 different words for world, but why is it when Eretz is used, sometimes you'll read land, sometimes you'll read earth? I don't understand.
I think it's... I don't hate to say this. I think it's because of eschatology. They need world stuff to happen so that they can pull that from the Old Testament and bring it into the New Testament and see this is,
I'm scanning Zephaniah right now, and all the language is complete. Destruction, wiped out. Earth doesn't exist anymore.
But look at verse 4, chapter 1.
Chapter 1, 4. Well, yeah.
So now we're being told. So I will stretch out my hand against Judah and against all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and I will cut off the remnant of Baal from this place, and the names of the idolatrous priests, along with the priests, and those who bow down on the housetops to the host of heaven. But this isn't talking about the end of the world. This is talking about them. And look at the language that's used. It's decreation language.
And 7, be silent before the Lord God, for the day of the Lord is near.
Yeah.
The Lord has prepared. I mean, it just goes on. And then if I just scan this,
verse 14, chapter 1.
The great day of the Lord is near.
Coming very
and
quickly.
Fast. The sound of the day of the Lord is bitter.
Look at verse 18. In the fire of his jealousy, for he will make a complete end, indeed a terrifying one, of all the inhabitants of the land.
And by the way, it's not good when the Lord comes.
Not in this case.
Yes, I mean it's not like it's
just tucked away in Zephaniah.
And look at 4. For Gaza will be abandoned, and you know what they do with that. That's present day Gaza. And now I'm remembering again. I think this was Travis, or maybe it was, I can't remember. You say, no, Zephaniah isn't talking about modern day Gaza. So now we get back to verse 8 in chapter 3. Therefore wait for me, declares the Lord, for the day when I will rise up in the prey. Indeed, my decision is to gather nations, to assemble kingdoms, to pour out on them my indignation, all my burning anger, for all the earth or the land will be devoured by the fire of my zeal. And I think
real quick, Gary, do dispensationalists take Zephaniah as future? Is it all future?
No, they don't. No,
not even the end, because the end here says, behold,
maybe the end they do, but
behold, at that time I will deal with all your oppressors. I will save the lame and gather the outcast. I will change their shame into praise and renown in all the earth. At that time I will bring you in, at the time when I gather you together, for I will make you renowned and praised among all the peoples of the earth, when I restore your fortunes before your eyes, says the Lord. Because if this was the end, you have an end that is somehow making you renowned and praised among all the peoples of the earth.
Yeah, and I would think the dispensationalists would say at the end of history, after the Antichrist comes and then ends up killing 2/3 of the Jews living in Israel, that this is all going to happen, and then they're going to be reigning on the earth for 1,000 years. Then you got the Gog and Magog war and all that sort of thing.
Do you know anything about that? Have you done any work on that?
On which one?
Which one? Well, my Bible cross-references Matthew 25:32.
Yes.
Oh, really?
On Zephaniah 3 verse 8, I have Matthew 25:32, and then at the end where it says, "For all the earth shall be devoured," I have a cross-reference 2 Peter 3:10.
Yeah. You put it all together, it sounds apocalyptic in the sense of end of the world stuff, but this language. And we have hyperbole type language, really trying to make the case here this is really going to be severe. Now, I believe that what you find in the New Testament is what Zephaniah is describing at the end of the book. You know, the Lord of glory had come down and saved them, and the message of Christ was around the world. I mean, Christianity and the gospel had gone everywhere, and
Paul says,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, all creation under heaven at that time.
So deconstruction language, I had teed that up with, before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, and he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right.
Okay, before you go there, I want to go to one more place
Okay.
on what you're doing with this. Go to Acts chapter 17. So Paul here is dealing with the Athenians, and they thought they were hot stuff. And if you read this, where they had a just in case we missed all the gods, we've got one here to an unknown god.
Right.
Paul quotes a lot of their philosophers, Stoic philosophers, Epicurean, and so forth. And let's see, verse 27, that they should seek God, if perhaps they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each of us. For in him we live and move and exist, as even some of your own poets have said, for we also are his offspring. Being then the offspring of God, we ought not to think that the divine nature is like gold or silver or stone, an image formed by the art and thought of men. Therefore, having overlooked the times of ignorance, God is now declaring to men that all everywhere should repent. So you got the Apostle Paul here is taking this message and using the Athenians as an example, and notice what it says, that it's not just the Jews who need to repent. Don't look upon what the Jews were doing and they lost their temple. Everybody is going to have to repent, because if you don't, something similar is going to happen to you. And so look at verse 31. Because he has fixed a day in which he will judge the world in righteousness through a man whom he has appointed, having further proof to all men by raising him from the dead. And that word world there is oikumene.
And Mello's in there too.
Yes, he is about to judge
The
oikumene. About to. I mean, look, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with this type of language, but the first thing I'm not going to do is just throw it into the future without at least looking at the language. And sometimes we just have poor translations here, because I think there is this preoccupation with a particular eschatological position that has to be defended. And you can't translate things a certain way. No one would know that the Greek word mello is used in this passage.
Right.
And that's 111 times in the New Testament mello is used. And in many of those places, it's never translated. But if you were to pick up a Greek-English interlinear, you would see it, and they translate it as about to.
About to.
And young, for the most part.
Yes. Yeah, we have
a good job.
We have this concise commentary on we just do the New Testament by Robert Young, who did Young's Concordance. We make that available in American Vision. You can read, and you see the translation there. You'll see mellow is used there. And there's so many helps online that you can go. I use Bible Hub, and you don't even need to know Greek to be able to look stuff up to say, wait a minute, what is this word here? So now we go back to what you were saying.
Well,
25.
Yeah, well, but sheep and the goats on 33, and he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right, come you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me.
Wait, what does it say? You did it to one of these brothers of mine. Not doesn't say the brothers of mine, but these.
One of the least of these.
Yes, but these. There was an audience. There's an audience there. Even the least of them, you did it to me. So Jesus seems to be saying here, it's the way my disciples are being treated.
Same as this generation, you will go through you. You're saying it's the same.
Right. And where do we read about this? In the book of Acts. The book of Acts. Who were the enemies? Who were the enemies of the gospel? It was the fellow Jews. Not all Jews, but the Jews. They were the first persecutors of their other Jews.
Right. Right. That's who's oppressing them all through the book of Acts. Right.
Oh, Paul, what is it? Is it Second Corinthians? I don't know why I keep forgetting. It must be my age. 2 Corinthians, is it 10? No. 2 Corinthians 11. Paul's dealing with his fellow countrymen. Verse 22. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they descendants of Abraham? So am I. Are they servants of Christ? I speak as if insane, Paul writes. I more so in far more labors, far more imprisonments, beaten times without number, often in dangers of death. 5 times I received from the Jews 39 lashes. What is that? That wasn't a Roman punishment. That was a Jewish punishment that they know they couldn't beat somebody 40 times, so just to make kind of like a baker's dozen.
Yeah.
If you don't have a dozen eggs, we're going to fine you a lot, so they put an extra one in there called a baker's dozen. That's 13. This goes the other way. We make sure we didn't beat him more than 40. We're just going to do 39.
Which is, I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me.
Yeah.
That's
so it's just it's I think what we find here is that Jesus is.
But here's the context you're setting up, and tell me if I'm pushing this too far. You're saying that Jesus is talking to his audience, the people that are there, and the example you just gave was his people, his countrymen, Jews being persecuted by other Jews. So to me, that would set up in Matthew 25 in this parable. Then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you are cursed into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry and you gave me no food. I was thirsty and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger and you did not welcome me, naked and you did not clothe me, sick and in prison and you did not visit me. Then they also will answer, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not minister to you? Then he will answer them, saying, truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. So if I'm following you, at least the picture you just gave, Jesus is talking to his disciples. He's talking to Jews. He's setting up.
Well, he's talking to Jews, but he's talking about Jews. Now you got to go all the way back to chapters 21 and 22.
Right.
But
people are going to persecute them, and Jesus says also you're going to be dragged through synagogues, you're going to be beaten. So that'd be hard to put in the future unless you want to set up a world where the Jews are going to have synagogues and start grabbing Christians and beating them and persecuting them. I think people used to make that argument. I don't know if they do anymore, but that was kind of like, how are you going to get Christians dragged through synagogues in the end times, right? So you have Jews being dragged by other Jews into synagogues, beaten, flogged. We see that all through the book of Acts. I'm assuming it wasn't just Paul. There must have been other Christians who weren't Roman citizens, who didn't get the benefits that Paul got as a Roman citizen that got the 40 lashes and were killed, right? This would seem to me that the way you have presented Matthew 25 is that this coming judgment still stays in the context of AD 70, and those who killed the Messiah, those who persecuted the followers of Christ, who were their countrymen, not the Romans, but the religious leaders of their day, that's the sheep and the goats.
I think so. Very, very much like the wheat and the tares.
Okay.
And now, this doesn't mean, since Jesus is applying it to that generation, that, it's okay now to do these things to other people. There are lessons in everything that we've read and interpreted already. There are lessons in all this. So let's not say, well, because this has already been fulfilled, there are no lessons here. We wouldn't say that about things in the Old Testament that certainly have been fulfilled.
Right.
So anyway, I just think the context is all about that generation. And Keith Matheson, who worked with R.C. Sproul and has written on all the kind of I think it's all the prophecies in is it just the New Testament? Is it the Old Testament?
It's the Old and New.
Okay.
I know what book you're talking about, on the age or something.
Yeah, and he says no. This is about that time period.
So it's not that wacky, even within at least the camp that you run in, to say that Matthew 24 and 25 was 87.
Yeah, I've found a number of things. Now look,
From Age to Age by Keith Matheson.
Yes, From Age to Age, and there's one of the other books on postmillennialism.
Yes.
One of the books on postmillennialism, he deals with some of this as well. So, and as I've stated in other occasions, there's a lot of inconsistencies among people who disagree with me on Bible prophecy, and I would like to see some of those inconsistencies, rectified.
Yep.
Sit down and talk about it.
I think the last few chapters of Matthew 25 really is the key, because even myself that leans more in this direction. As soon as I get there, when I take time, when there's something about when you read the Bible verse by verse, you start to forget a lot. You think it'd be the opposite. But as soon as I get sucked into a chapter and I'm reading, you start thinking about it or discussing it, it gets real myopic. It's almost like then you get to chapter 25 and I already kind of forgot what I was reading. I already forgot what I know about the Old Testament. It's like, okay, here's this judgment and all the nations. I say, this is all the nations again. Like
You'll never forget Zephaniah anymore.
I'll never forget Zephaniah anymore. Yeah, and that even for me, it's like I forget, because there's something about the New Testament when we read it, we somehow think when we read the Old Testament, that apocalyptic language makes sense. That's the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the New Testament, that's kind of this new, fresh thing. And now when I read a narrative about all the nations and everyone's going to see, I get very literal. Like I catch myself going like, well, this is the new version. That was the old apocalyptic, ancient Near East version, and coming on clouds. And that was like Exodus language, with like pharaohs and snakes and magicians. This is like pretty straightforward conversation. Yeah, this isn't like a prophet describing something. This is like a person writing something, and he's not going to use apocalyptic language. He's not going to use all this stuff. Like this is all literal. Like if I open up Zephaniah, I'm fine with it being weird and esoteric and apocalyptic, but not Matthew. Matthew's like, look,
that's a gospel.
Yeah, this is a gospel. It started here. Here's the generations. Like this is very clear thinking. We're not apocalyptic. But then I have to remind myself, it's Jesus speaking at that part. Jesus isn't speaking on the generations. I know people want to say it's all, but I'm saying for the most part, that's the Spirit with the person they're writing, right? But when he quotes Jesus, I have to remind myself, I'm hearing the same God that has been speaking all throughout the Bible.
They don't I think I'm going to come down here and just tell a different story a different way.
Right.
No, you tell it the same way, because You got to make the connection. That's why there's so many quotations from the Old Testament in the New Testament.
Right.
Jesus is connecting them. So I would recommend what people do is go back and read 21 through again. Start from the beginning. You know, I told you what I was going to tell you. I told you, and now I'm going to go and tell you again. So you need to go back and read it and say, oh, now I can connect chapter 21 with 25, chapter 22 with 24, and chapter 23 and 24. The whole thing it's one narrative all the way through, and there's no, as far as I can tell, nothing splits all of this up into two completely different sections. You got the master coming back to the same servants. You got the bride and the bridegroom. It's not a different bride, a different bridegroom at some other time. A long time means relative to, somebody goes away for a while and he comes back to the same people. I mean, go back and read it from the beginning. And if you want, I have one chapter in my book, Last Days Madness, chapter 15, which goes through the rest of chapter 24 and 25. Not as much detail as we did here. We need to turn this probably.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I think that's what's exciting about doing this. And someone might ask, like, well, what's the motive for going through Matthew 24 and Matthew 25 and discussing it?
I think the parable of the talents. I think that's the key. What are we going to do worldview-ish? This is taking place. We're still here. There are remnants of things in the past that Christians have done. What are we going to do with the investment of our capital, real capital, and metaphorical capital? What are we going to do?
Right.
We're going to look to the future and say it's hopeless. The only way we can get out of this is for Jesus to return and rapture us out. Or why has he left us here?
Well, and everyone's going to die, right? The end of 25 is, by the way, everyone dies.
Yeah. Thanks for the reminder.
Right. I don't know. You might outlive all of us.
No.
But the end of 25, no matter what your view is it's the end for everybody. One-to-one direction, one group to another direction.
Yeah. Which
means the parable of the talents is even more important to your point, right? Like, if you want to apply it today, let's say you go, okay, this was about 80, 70, the judgment, all that, and okay, well, what now? Well, but you're still going to come to an end, and you still want God to say to you, well done, good and faithful servant.
Yeah.
Right? And so you have to make decisions, and hoarding anything, right? Because that's what the religious leaders did with God. They hoarded God. They hoarded his blessing. They hoarded the temple.
Yeah.
Right? They and then Jesus
misused the temple for their own assets.
Right. Yeah. Right. And Jesus says, no. We're going to bless everybody.
Yeah. In the interview I did with Doug Wilson this morning.
Yeah.
How many children under 5 did he say there were in the church?
300.
300.
Think of that. Under 5. I thought think of that. 300 children in the church under 5.
Right.
What does that speak of? When you got the homosexual community, no future, no
Right.
posterity.
You certainly can't adopt 6 kids.
No
one wants to pay for that.
Yeah, transgenderism literally cutting off your future.
Right.
And I'm thinking, and the same in our church, we have little children just run all over after church. They're just all over, happy as can be.
Yeah.
They're all hugging with one another, and I mean, it's really remarkable. And to me, that bodes well for the future. And if Christians around the world took that, but now what is it? We're fearful. We don't want to have children because things are. We don't know what the future is going to hold, so we don't want to have children. And there was some of that. I think probably some of that fear even in Paul's day, because he does allude to it, a little bit as to what was going to be taking place, but he said that was more his opinion than anything else. So the future.
And temporarily, he was right. Like, it's going to get bad.
Yes.
This is going to be a tough time.
Yeah.
For you here.
Yes. And you think of after World War I, World War II. I saw this piece on Singapore, which is pretty small. I think Singapore is the size of Gaza.
Okay.
And there was a time that Singapore looked like Gaza. Poor, dirt, literally dirt, poor everywhere. One guy comes along and changes everything. And look on a map.
Yeah.
See,
it
is unbelievable. And they turned that into a it's a nexus in terms of capital, goods.
Travel, you have to fly there to fly into Singapore.
Yes.
Right.
I mean,
Singapore Air, phenomenal.
Oh, it's the best airline.
Yeah.
You have to ask the question, what made the difference? And unfortunately, I think some secularists have a better conception of the future than Christians do. And Christians just, they'll say, well, the rapture is going to save us. And some people say, well, what should I do? The task is too big for us to do. That's why I think the interview I did with Doug was so important, because I think he kind of mapped out some of this mindset and why people are attracted to things where they see that the investment pays off in the future. No one cares about what stocks you made money on in the past. They want to know, tell me your stock picks for the future. And I hate to put things always in economic principles, but the Bible has economics all over it. So.